The Book of Five Rings by Miyamoto Musashi. The Book of Wind. Strategy demands that you know the difference between yourself and others. The Book of Wind discusses the prevalent attitudes among other schools. In order for one school to be compared to another, both must exist. Each school has its good points and its bad points. Some schools use the attitudes of strength. Some schools lean towards only one or two types of techniques. And some schools rely on a constant expansion of the number of techniques a warrior uses. The main idea of my school is that it is based on the development of the way through an expression of the spirit, techniques notwithstanding. I want to clearly explain the good and bad points of other schools. My school is different. I care not for the dressings of other uniforms or the growing of small trees, although these things have their place. If the school is primarily interested in building up a clientele and displays the trophies won at tournaments, among other things, it gives the student the wrong idea about the way of the warrior. Essentially, such a school is trying to sell its wares to the public by using the longsword as a means to accumulate wealth. This is absolutely not the way of the warrior. You must understand this, if you are to develop your spirit in the proper manner. The spirit of the thing itself revolts against this type of thinking, and reveals itself falsely to the practitioner who believes that showing off is the essence of strategy. To be a warrior is one of the most painstaking callings you can choose in this life. Combat is not a game, it is life and death. It simply cannot be otherwise. It is not enough merely to insist upon proper carriage of the body and false brandishing of weapons in the spirit. For while it is obvious that carriage and technique are important, they are not important enough to win fights of a mortal nature. The spirit must be cultivated. If it is not, a tragic shortcoming of awareness in the warrior will result. It is important to understand the reasons and philosophies of other systems in order to truly benefit from my own. I do not hesitate to point these things out to you. Without comparison, you have no reference point with which to judge for yourself and decide how to properly develop for your own self. You should study the ways of others to reinforce your own understanding of yourself. Constantly reevaluate yourself. Schools that use an extra long sword. Other schools, because they teach a method that relies on distance between themselves and the enemy, are generally unable to close in on the enemy easily. They are afraid of going into the enemy and defeating him with one stroke. They think the length of their weapon can offer them additional security in combat, yet the extra length only hinders their resolve. This alone makes them weak, and if they fought someone from Aichi school, they would very simply be closed in on and defeated. Fighting from a distance without the advantage of strategy prevents the warrior from becoming one with his true self. Fighting this way separates the body and the spirit, and is therefore not effective in fights to the death. Certainly, it is advantageous to have the edge in distance or speed, but without proper understanding of strategy, these so-called advantages become weapons that can be used against you. If you truly understand strategy, then you simply do not need advantages as such. You cannot rely on your weapons alone, though you must be able to wield them thoroughly, applying their nature with the correct execution and form. Your resolve must be intense, and your courage steadfast. You must go into the attack in order to win the fight. This is the way. A short sword can easily beat an extra long sword. Essentially, the weapon in and of itself is meaningless without the proper application of its virtues by the warrior. Keep in mind, there are martial arts that have been developed to provide unarmed self-defense against a warrior wearing armor and wielding a sword. An unarmed warrior can beat an armed warrior if my strategy is understood. So again, it is the development of the spirit that carries you through battle and makes you victorious. When a warrior uses an extra longsword, it is difficult for him to come in close and dispatch the enemy swiftly. If a man is unable to function because of his choice of weapon, then he is easily defeated. This does not mean that you should disregard the virtue of an extra longsword. Everything has its value, even if it's not apparent to you. You must always be prepared to deal with every situation, regardless of how you are equipped. This means, with the longsword, the short sword, no sword, or an extra longsword. My personal preference is for the longsword. It is important to understand the differences in weapons and the places they can be used. Even so, it is not altogether impossible for someone with an extra longsword to be able to do exquisite battle in an inappropriate location. Consider this possibility. Being aware of the conditions of others does not automatically make you superior. Circumstances being equal, the winner of the fight is still the one with the most resoluteness. It is essential for a student on the path of the warrior never to close his mind to the possibilities of other possibilities. the strong sword spirit and the weak sword spirit in other schools. This passage is one of the most important parts of the entire Five Rings. It is also one of the most difficult concepts of strategy to understand and to come to realize. Your strength is not your own, nor is your speed. Forcing yourself to cut more strongly than is necessary will result in possible loss of control of your weapon. Attempting to strike overly fast can also cause you to lose your balance. Strategy is based on quickness and not speed. Power, not strength. In practice, you must remember to attack naturally. In developing technique, you must practice naturally. It is constant practice that will make you unbeatable in combat, whether it is with one man or on a large scale. The true spirit of the thing itself always knows exactly what it has to do to protect the vehicle that is expressing itself through. Who cares how strong you are anyway? Someone you are trying to impress? If you continue on in this thinking, you will lose the meaning of the way of the warrior, which is never easy to attain in the best of cases. So why would you want to jeopardize yourself by showing off? You only have to make sure that you kill the enemy before the enemy kills you. That is your function. It is the function of the thing itself, to perform the technique in accordance with what is really necessary to destroy the enemy. This very simple truth is one of the hardest aspects of learning the way of the warrior. Total non-commitment to yourself, only commitment to the way. In combat, you are not in a contest of strength, and you are not in a race. You are there for the only purpose there is to be in combat, to kill the enemy. Showing extra strength indicates weakness in your technique. It also shows a lack of control on your part, because you are depending on something outside of your true self. Your own preconceived ideas of what being strong means is not the way of the warrior. That is why you see the older masters able to defeat everyone in the school with what appears to be no effort. The important thing to remember here is not to rely on anything other than your true spirit and the skill that you have developed through constant practice without the benefit of impressing anyone while you were practicing. The way insists that you learn to use the enemy's strength as your own. The only reason a warrior is alive is to fight, and the only reason a warrior fights is to win. Otherwise, why be a warrior? It's easier to count beads. The importance of the longsword over the short sword. Superior warriors have no preference for using a longsword or a short sword. A sword is used to strike down an enemy. Warriors can use any weapon if they choose. Warriors can use any weapon they choose if they understand my strategy. It is also to be understood that using only a short sword means that you are waiting for an unguarded moment in your enemy before attacking. This is not good because it is merely a defensive posture and does not fully realize the true meaning of strategy. You are waiting for the opportunity to be offered to take the initiative. Using a short sword means you are going into the enemy's defenses too closely, and you may not be able to handle multiple attackers. The short sword will also cause you to become entangled with the enemy. To constantly be on the defensive means that you are weak in your resolve, and that you do not truly understand the way of the warrior. The attitude at all times is to go into the attack. To do this, you must be prepared both mentally and physically. This includes understanding your weaponry. To continually fend off an attacker without the resolution to kill him is a great waste of time, effort, and energy. You must remember this. You are not there to play, and you are not there to show off. You are there to kill the enemy, or as many enemies as is necessary. If you constantly practice with the spirit of killing the enemy, you will never have to be concerned with the methods of other schools. It is best to understand the proper use of the longsword. To win in fights, you must control the enemy, and not necessarily rely on your weapons so much as your intelligence. You must chase the enemy around and strive to confuse him by making him lose his balance. You must stand straight and true with your spine erect. You must understand what it means to suffocate him with a pillow, then kill him. There is nothing else. Most people trying to learn strategy do not understand this for some reason. They think that countering, or evading, or running is the way of strategy. It is not. Early on in your training, your teacher must impart this wisdom to you. If he does not, perhaps he is the wrong teacher for you, if you truly wish to learn the way of strategy. The true warrior is unflinching in his devotion to studying his craft. If you are unfortunate enough to never have had this vital concept drummed into your head, consider yourself lucky for having it done so now. It is a terrible thing that many other schools do not understand what the way of the warrior really is. Many warriors have had to take a hard look at reality when it became evident to them that they were not being led to the path, but perhaps only being led down the path. Schools that teach odd methods of using the longsword. Clever people do not understand temperance of spirit. Clever techniques, shown to beginning students in other schools, are very dangerous to the unformed mind. They seek to trick people by dancing and jumping and switching hands. This is stupidity, and it does nothing to enhance the reputation of the warrior. It is because of these people that commoners despise the warrior mentality, for commoners are not shown the true way. Clever people teach that no one can beat them because of their superior technique. They belittle others who have different methods. They try to bully others into following their way. Some teachers think that by impressing students with their own skills, they can convert them into their way of thinking. These are terrible things to do, and I despise those who practice this method of teaching. They do not understand the true way of the warrior. They've probably not had experience in real battle, and only play at what they do. In the heat of battle, the spirit of the thing itself will reveal its disgust towards those who practice in this manner. They will lose the way and be beaten in fights. There is only one way to kill the enemy. The way is to kill the enemy with one stroke. Killing by cutting is totally different from killing by slashing. Slashing being every other way to kill besides that of the warrior cut. Anyone can kill anyone for any reason at any time. It is foolish to think that someone who is untrained cannot kill. The way of the warrior is to kill as a way of being, and not merely for the result itself. Strategy teaches the appropriate manner in which to kill correctly and without hesitation. The intense training that a warrior goes through teaches this simple lesson. Being known as a warrior is a very substantive thing. It is never taken lightly, especially by other warriors, if they are true warriors and not merely braggarts from another school or system. To practice your craft as a warrior takes a tremendous amount of devotion, and you must understand the need for frustration while you are training. Few can understand this, to their discredit. You absolutely must believe in what you are doing, and you must practice it with the intention of laying down your life for it, if the spirit of the thing itself requires you to do so. The reason true warriors are fierce is because their training is fierce. Ponder this over and over. Regardless, you must maintain the proper form and balance while training and while not training. Maintain respect for others and respect for your own way. Not to do so is moronic. Maintain the proper attitudes towards the way and permit the way to proceed through you based on your own resolve. The method is to go straight in, and it is undoubtedly the hardest method to master. That is why you must constantly practice, and not merely take up the sword as a novel way of spending time. You can, of course, if you only want to make a hobby out of attaining perfection. That, however, is not the true way. Incorrect carriage and warrior attitudes. Do not bear false attitudes. False attitudes work best where there are no enemies. In real situations, they get you killed very quickly. The true warrior does not go around telling everyone he is a great warrior. He permits his actions to govern others' responses. My idea of attitude is based on the principle of the true way, which is to not allow it to be perceived by the enemy. Blatant attitudes such as fancy armor, engraved weapons in battle array, and the like are an attempt to throw an enemy off balance. Yet these things impress only the untrained and irresolute. The warrior's attitude is that of taking the lead in a fight and winning with resolve. You must understand this basic lesson. It is important to perceive the enemy's attitudes, regardless of whether you deem him to be correct or incorrect in having them. You should not judge the enemy's attitudes needlessly. What you should do is use them to your advantage by throwing him into confusion and making him lose balance. This can be your way of scaring him and forcing him to act according to your needs. It is stupid to try and beat his attitude with your attitude. This is another form of bragging and results in hesitation on your part in going for the kill. The reason you are there in the first place. The warrior always wants to control the situation in battle. This is why it is necessary to practice diligently to attain the consciousness required to maintain this attitude. It is required of a warrior that in order to follow the true way, he be aware of all possible conditions prior to the actual battle taking place. In this way, he may not even have to do battle because of his superior intelligence based on perception and intuition. It is possible to win a fight without ever having to go into combat. You must understand this. Bearing an attack well, even when you are superior in physical strength, is not the proper attitude for the warrior to follow. Try to understand this. If you wait for the attack, defend against it, and only then go in for the attack by parrying and striking, you are making extra work for yourself. Moreover, there is always the possibility of missing the block. If you approach the enemy with the attitude of defeating him without delay and with utter resolve, then you will certainly be in a better position to finish him off with quicker timing. When you go into an attack, you are committed to destroying the enemy. You do not have to worry about being cut in return, and therefore you won't be. The spirit of the thing itself is what carries you through to a successful resolution of a fight. When you are returning the attack to the enemy after he has attacked you, you are permitting your rhythm and timing to be controlled by him. Regardless of how well you fight, you are on the defensive. You should strive to be neither offensive nor defensive. These ideas can force the mind to stop in its flow of consciousness and get you killed when you are in a fight. I strongly urge you to understand this part of my strategy if you are on the path of the warrior. I'll try that again. These ideas can force the mind to stop in its flow of consciousness and get you killed when you are in a fight. I strongly urge you to understand this part of my strategy if you are on the path of the warrior. Fixing the eyes in other schools. Some teachers say that you should always stare at the enemy's weapons, or at his eyes, or at his feet. This is not a good idea because it fixes your spirit in place and is easily read by an experienced fighter. It also limits your ability to be flexible under any circumstances. It takes the naturalness out of your actions and weakens your resolve. If the football player constantly watches only the football, how can he ever expect to run down the field and score? If the master musician looks only at the music, note for note, how can he ever play with the soul required for the music to make sense? It is the same with the warrior. One particular part of the enemy should not be stared at. This makes it too easy for the enemy to deceive you and interfere with your timing and rhythm. You should favor the broader view. Your eyes should be fixed on no thing. Your stare should be unfixed. When I fight another man, I look through him and think only of making the hit. I have no preconceived notions of which target is the one to aim for. I let nature take its course and permit the spirit of the thing itself to express itself through me and make me the victor. And I never forget to acknowledge the spirit after I won a fight. This is the true warrior's way. With experience, you will soon learn to ascertain the strength and speed of the enemy. This will enable you to figure out his intentions and determine his skill. Look through the enemy. Look through his heart. Look beyond his very being and degrade him entirely with your spirit. This is what you must concentrate upon. The spirit of the thing itself will guide your hands accordingly and help you to beat the enemy in a fight. Always take the broader view of the entire situation, both when you are in a fight and when you are not. Do not concentrate on details. Keep only one thing in mind. That thing is to beat the enemy. In this way, your spirit will continue to grow, and you will always be conscious of your surroundings and the situations that appear. Concentrating on one cart when you are crossing the avenue means that you leave yourself open to another cart hitting you from the other side, because you were concentrating on details and not the entire situation. The same applies to fighting. If you constantly gaze at the enemy's feet, it will be easy for him to strike you with a punch. If you concentrate on the hands, he will kick you. If you concentrate on the eyes, he can easily fool you into thinking one thing while he does another. Always look to the mountain and beyond. This way you will be aware of the broader picture and can easily win if you have the resolve to do so. The stupidity of fancy footwork. Do not attempt to be clever with your feet. Many attitudes of footwork seem to me to be simple wastes of time because their only intention is to get your attention and throw you into confusion. Likewise, when you shuffle your feet or make quick little jumps to the side, or make any useless moves, you lose your advantage against a skilled fighter. Besides, you are not there to dance. You are there to kill the enemy. Again, the emphasis is not relying on a specific walking or moving pattern. The definitions of the types of walks reflect their users and are to be considered as indicating the spirit in which they are used. For example, a jumping pattern indicates a jumpy spirit, don't you think? When I move in on the enemy, I move with resolve and sure-footedness. I walk in as naturally as if I were walking in the street. I do not differentiate between walking into attack or walking into the house. My strategy does not permit change in composure, regardless of the ground being fought on. By being sure-footed, I can overcome most obstacles in my path. This way I do not lose my rhythm. When I make changes in rhythm, it is based on the enemy's rhythm, and by moving fast or slow, I close in on him and kill him. Why would you want to change your basic attitudes towards life simply because a new set of events is occurring? If you take the time to change your methodology in midstream, your spirit has to catch up regardless of how quickly you move. Eventually, you're going to have to come back to your natural state, so why leave it in the first place? You must maintain a natural rhythm and a natural timing. Anything that you add to or delete from this naturalness will cost you the advantage when you are proceeding to destroy the enemy. Moving in a natural gait will afford you the opportunity to move either fast or slow, and will thus enable you to follow the enemy with a much steadier attitude. Your spirit will remain intact, and you will be able to defeat the enemy. How to think of speed. Some schools think that speed is all that is necessary to win fights. If you can make a fast slash and win, all the better. I do not agree with this idea and think that it in fact slows you down. You are again relying on an external concept. What is speed anyway? Speed is relative to the situation in which you are involved. Being fast or being slow has to do with speed. Quickness is what you want in your spirit. A quick spirit is able to overcome any apparent speed with which an enemy is coming at you. Quickness gets inside of speed and enables you to control the situation by killing the enemy. When you advance quickly and get immediately to the point. Your speed is dependent upon the speed of the enemy. You adjust yourself accordingly and do not think in terms of being faster or slower. Quickness is the thing that counts. What is more, if you are constantly moving fast, you will have no time to maintain your poise and timing. Your rhythm will start to get out of control because you will tire and start to move slower, perhaps without even realizing it. When you are skilled in the art you have chose to study, you will have the true understanding of rhythm and timing necessary to perform flawlessly. Perfection can only be based on true calmness within the soul, and any attempt to radically change for no good reason will throw the entire attitude of calmness out of harmony. Move naturally and gracefully. Execute correctly. Think about this. Quickness is the thing on which the spirit relies. Speed, not being necessarily good, can only cause you to lose control. If you move too fast or too slow, you may give your enemy the advantage necessary to beat you. Always move naturally and calmly, with great resolve to destroy the enemy. In a large battle with many men, everyone will move with their own timing and their own rhythm. Not being influenced by others is essential if you are able to beat men in a fight. You absolutely must train diligently in this regard. When you are your own self and are not concerned with the motions of others, you will be in control of the situation and in control of the enemy and the movements with which he may or may not attack you. Keeping calm is essential to not losing sight of your main purpose in a fight, to kill the enemy quickly. Inner and outer attitudes in other schools. The difference between a warrior's victory in combat and an exemplary artistic performance is that in art, the outcome does not include the death of a dancer in the dance or the death of a musician in the performance, while in combat, the reality is that the outcome is decided with the death of the enemy or yourself. I do not like inner and outer attitudes. They are detrimental to understanding the true nature of the universe, which is oneness. Why confuse yourself with definitions of what you think the spirit of the thing itself should be doing? When I teach beginners, I concentrate on developing technique and make little mention of deeper principles. They are not necessary, and intellectual exercises tend to limit the student's progress. Only later, when they are able to understand that fighting is not an intellectual exercise, although the aesthetics involved in executing specific techniques call for a strong and intelligent spirit, will I go into the deeper meaning of things. If you concern yourself with an inner and an outer attitude, you will only interfere with your timing and your rhythm. It is best to concentrate only on killing the enemy and attaining perfection in yourself and your technique. Endnotes to the Book of Wind. It is not wise to criticize another's way. There are reasons for a man to have his own. Ask someone a question, and he will give you an answer. Ask the same question to another, and he will give a different answer. There is no need to examine the doctrines of another school of thought until you have come to terms with the doctrines of the school you are studying. In the very beginning, you seek a teacher. Then you come to understand the realities of what it is you are studying. When you feel that something is missing, or that you are not learning anything further, you must of your own volition seek the next level of instruction. There is no such thing as yin-yang. This is not to say that yin-yang does not exist. So ends the Book of Wind.